The most common area which we don't train is our feet. We hit our toe somewhere. We are in so much pain, and it's just the tiny toe. Like, it's not a very major joint, but it just instantly starts to compensate your body weight and you'll start walking differently.
33% of the population suffering with foot injuries.
We never address these things like plantar fasciitis or conditions like bunions or any other condition. Most of the runners I see that will end up buying a half a size bigger for this reason only, that you will have to have a toe box which is better. When it ends up becoming a permanent issue, no amount of surgeries, no orthotics, none of these actually work. When those receptors are not giving the signal, there will be a loss of balance. If you have a lesser toe mobility, it actually reduces your hip mobility.
When you go to like a rural area where people are mostly wearing either very simple slippers or actually barefoot, you notice that the toe splay or the width of the foot from the front is much wider for
Correct.
folks like that versus some of us living in urban areas.
Reducing my weight of the entire body weight by 10 grams and I'm going to run faster. It's not the case like that.
So, as a founder of a barefoot company, I often get asked this. In fact, very often get asked this. Are barefoot shoes good for your feet, right? And instead of giving the common spiel that I mostly give on my own every time, I thought, let's probably put some science behind all of this. And so, we have you, Dr. Paridhi, over here with us today.
Thank you so much, Varun, for inviting me and having me here. Uh, I have been into this industry being a sports physio for 10 years, but I would want to touch upon that how it actually started. Journey started from being a tennis player, wherein I did play professionally. I was a national level gold medalist, and I realized that every athlete has a shelf life. That's when I realized that, okay, we need to change something. So I got injured when I was 17, and that was purely because of the overuse.
Wow.
I played 38 tournaments in 1 year, wherein I was just all out with, just playing, and not really focusing on my strengthening, not focusing on recovery. And all of those things actually led me to where I am today. While I was doing that, it happened that the knee injury was quite serious, wherein the doctor said that, okay, you need to stop playing and you can't run, you can't play, you can't do things. But what happened in that transition of recovering was I realized the importance of strength training and how our body can actually transform into the performance what we see athletes performing. Now, when I was recovering, that phase was very, very mentally challenging because I could see my fellow athletes playing, doing things. But for me, it was very difficult to come out and say that, okay, I can play because I was in so much pain. And having the interest in science, I did study science because it happened at a good timing. I would say my injury happened at a very good time that I could take science in my 11th, 12th in my high school. And I did my work in terms of, the initial bachelor's of physiotherapy. And I got into master's and did sports physiotherapy. And that's where I realized that people talk about so much of fitness, nutrition, other things, but we actually lack so much care in our own body. So that's where this interest came in, and I dwelled into that, okay, how does our body function better? I work with elite athletes and as well as recreational people. The most common area which we don't train is our feet. So that's something which I really see that, okay, we need to work on that.
Yeah, I remember that. And I think the first time I met you, after a brief conversation, you showed me this book called The Foot Fix. Of course, I went back home and I bought it straight away. Unfortunately, I haven't finished reading it. But I'd love to actually go deeper into why is the foot so important for both athletes like you were mentioning, as well as probably people like me, recreational sports folks or who just want to kind of lead a healthier life.
So when we are born and we start, having a developmental milestones that we say. The first thing happens is to lift your neck up. That's where the spine is taking the load. The next thing happens, you start to put your, rolling into action, that you're turning, you're feeling that. But the weight bearing, when it comes to that, that's the first thing is where we put our weight on the feet. And every kid who's born has a very flat, fluffy, small foot. And only when we start to load it, when we start to move, when we started walking, that's when those muscles are actually getting worked upon and they are developing. So, what happens while when that developmental stage is there, when we are walking, when we are standing, we did not go back to crawling, right? So crawling was still an action where we felt that, okay, our body was not ready to take that impact on the feet because the whole body weight was still there. But once the feet are grounded and you start walking, there are times you'll fall, you'll trip. That is because the muscle is still developing. It's still growing and having that shape of adaptation period, what we say, that it needs to adapt to that new situation. Now, the foot has too many tiny muscles and it is bearing the entire body weight, right from the infantry to your adulthood. That the area of the foot is very tiny. So, we are not utilizing the whole area to ground. The center of gravity, what we say in our body, is localized around the core. But what is handling is basically our feet. Now, what happens when we are starting to walk, do things, the foot strengthens, the foot takes that adaptation towards that, how it can make the shape, the kind of footwear that we wear. Initially, we are barefoot, walking, grounding, taking that sensory input because it has a lot of um, reactions. What we actually realized later, that the sensory inputs are coming from the foot, right? If you touch something which is sharp, you'll feel that and the brain gets the signal. But the feet have to take a lot of more charge in terms of having that confidence to make you balance, to run, to propel, to even stand on unbalanced surfaces or terrains, doing things which we don't realize on an everyday basis. Like if we hit our toe somewhere, we are in so much pain and we are not able to balance our entire body weight because the compensation starts quickly. And it's just the tiny toe. Like it's not a very major joint where we feel that, okay, I've broken or cut
Yeah.
something. But it just instantly starts to compensate your body weight and you'll start walking differently. So it has so much in it that we don't realize it on an everyday basis, but we neglect it a lot. So only when we start to train, we start to walk, we start to do things, weight bearing, that's when we realize that, okay, there is an importance of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And any sport you see, or in a general routine also, like while you are walking, while you're doing things, the entire body weight is there on it. So we really need to work on, like, strengthening the feet and not just the entire body that we usually end up doing at a gym.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
And I think I was Floppy, another podcast or reading somewhere that 1 in 3 people have foot injuries.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a huge number. That's like, 33% of the population
Mm.
suffering with foot injuries when
Mm.
rightly saying that, the feet are so important for everything
Yeah.
that we do in life,
Mm.
right? So, uh, would would be great if you can, go deep into some of the issues and injuries that, people come to you with. Where do they kind of stem from? Because there are foot injuries, there are knee issues like you had yourself,
Mm.
back pain with our lifestyles, etc. Uh, what's the core, I'd say, starting point of all of this?
So, feet, like, because, as we start growing, we are wearing a particular kind of footwear. Now, sometimes it's to do with just in school that you're wearing a general footwear as a sport shoes or a general canvas, which we used to wear in earlier times. And they were quite minimal. Like, if you remember those canvas shoes, which were white shoes, which were called as the sport shoes, which were actually quite minimal. And we never had pain. Like, we never addressed these things like plantar fasciitis or conditions like bunions or any other condition. Like, if you remember 15, 20 years ago, how it used to be. It's only when the lifestyle changes and there are more fancier footwears now, and we see that okay, there's a more cushioning or more, in terms of the toe box and how it functions, and the sneaker world which is there now. So all of those actually have transformed into problems in our body,
Interesting.
because I see people with bunions, I see people with plantar fasciitis, I see people with toe injuries, I see people with Achilles tendonitis, which entirely is your just the foot complex, the ankle complex that we say. And because it is weight bearing, while we are, when we travel abroad, we are walking 10K steps just easily, which we don't realize it. But while we are here in India, we are just walking hardly like 5K steps, and we don't even realize that, okay, we've walked 10K without any problems. Now, what ends up happening when you overtrain something and the muscle does not have enough strength or the endurance to last that long, that's when the injuries happen. Bunions especially happen when you have a very close shoe from the front, and the pressure is so much around your front toes that, you see females wearing bellies, and it happens mostly in females also, because you are wearing bellies, you're wearing pointed heels, you're wearing certain kind of footwear wherein your load is completely on the calf muscle. So when you place your foot down and you're walking, so the gait pattern that we say is from a heel strike to a midfoot and then going on the toes. But when you're wearing heels, you're always on your toes up, right? So the entire load is actually borne by the calf muscle. A bit about the foot anatomy. What we only address the foot as the sole portion. So we have the heel, which is the backbone. And then on top of that, there's one bone which is handling the entire ankle mortise, what we say, because the shin bone and the side bone that we have on the foot is basically going down and transferring the entire body weight into that bone. And then ahead of that, we have 3 more bones to take the load, which is what we call it the midfoot. And the front foot has all the toes, right? So there are 36 bones there, right? Because of the phalanges and the metatarsals that we say, the toes, that's called as the metatarsals and tarsals. So those muscles are tiny muscles which are actually taking the entire load of it. So the bone is the structure which has that capacity to withstand the entire body weight, right? So the ankle mortise that we say basically works on the pivoting action that we do on the foot, right? But the movement that we're doing from a heel strike to a midfoot to a front foot, that is something controlled by the muscles, right? And it gets the signals through our receptors that how much load to weight bear and when to act on which muscle. So when we are on the toes, the calf muscle is always active. But while we are putting the heel down, then the calf muscle is still under a lesser stress. But the sole muscle, which is the plantar fascia, what we say, that is what is taking too much load. Now, if you look at a normal foot from the inner angle, you'll see that there's a small arch here, right?
Yeah.
Which most of us have it. There are some people who don't have it, and that is what we call as a flat foot, right? The technical term for that is also pronation, which is basically the foot falling inwards, right? So the arch which is here, while we are heel strike pattern is there and then we are progressing, what happens, the arch has to control that. If it does not control, it lands inwards. So you'll see some people walking in a different pattern where their foot landing is inwards as compared to a normal foot bearing the weight and propelling to each step, right? So that weight bearing capacity is taken over by the fascia when we are not wearing a heel or we are standing flat, right? So the muscles which are in the undersurface are very, very important to be trained, because we have a concept called as a windmill effect, which is the windlass effect. Now, the windlass effect means that while you're trying to propel, the navicular bone, which is the inner side of the foot, will weight bear and drop this down. But with that elastic band underneath, which is the plantar fascia, it is being pulled up. And that is how the entire body weight is borne by the foot.
Super complex.
So, yeah, it is.
So just to put it in simple terms, Paridhi, so yes, it's probably super complex, and although I'm in this industry, I still take a while to actually get it. Though I'm getting most of what you're saying because I've read up reasonable amounts about it. Uh, for for someone who's a layperson, this complex machinery that we have, our feet, and you mentioned in the passing that the shoes that we've started wearing, from wearing regular canvas PT shoes to now slightly more complicated shoes, have an impact on this machine of ours.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me with a shoe on what that does to the feet and different parts of the feet, and what impact it has in the medium run, in the long run, so on and so forth?
So first, if we look at this footwear, what we can see, if I'm holding it flat on the ground, what happens, you see this big heavy cushion which is high here,
Yeah.
and then there is a inclined angle which you see that the toe is going upwards, right? So that's what we call as a heel drop, or a kind of a layer which forms the angle where your foot is not going to be straight flat. It is going to be slightly up like this because there's a heel and a cushion.
So it's a slope.
There's a slope.
Okay.
Right? So while any female is wearing a heels, so the heel drop is quite higher because then you're always on the toes like this, right? So you're going to use your muscles more instead of actually not using them just generally when you're barefoot. Right?
So you're putting undue pressure on your toes?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So when it's not supposed to be activated, while you're walking, standing, doing activities, then it's supposed to be active. But while you're wearing a heavy cushion shoe and you're standing also, there will be an extra load as compared to a normal barefoot standing or a barefoot shoe. Right? So while you're standing with this shoe, you'll see that there'll be a hike of, like, you'll keep your foot slightly up, wherein it's quite flat. We see that there's no angulation here. This feels completely flat. There's minimal cushioning, which is just to support your foot. And there's an inner arch, which I can see, which is basically helping the foot to be as stable on the ground as much as possible, right? So you'll actually use your lesser muscle groups when you're not supposed to, and you'll feel the contact points of your foot completely as compared to being on your toes and feeling that on the front foot area.
So 2 points that you're making, Paridhi. One is you're saying there's essentially an incline from the heel to the toe, which probably makes the gait of a person slightly unnatural when they're kind of standing or moving. And the other point you mentioned was the cushioning. And this is interesting, right? Because, when you think about cushioning, you feel good. There's a cushion in which I'm sitting, the cushion which I'm standing, sleeping. It's more comfortable, right? Let me increase the cushioning; it'll be more comfortable for you. That's the common, parlance that people use. But over here, you seem to imply that cushioning is not necessarily good for you with regards to your feet health. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Correct. So while I was explaining about this shoe also, that when you're weight bearing and you're feeling your feet naturally being there, you'll actually have a better sensory input in terms of your balance, your control, your proprioception, what we usually say of just having a coordination in your muscle to sense the right things. And also realizing that, okay, while you're standing with a very heavy cushion shoe, you are actually going to atrophy the muscles because you're not going to use them correctly. You're going to... Atrophy means, sorry. So atrophy means that you are going to let the muscle weaken as compared to strengthen, because you're going to overuse that muscle so much while you're standing on that cushion shoe that the muscle will fatigue after a point. And while you're performing or doing a sport, it's a different thing. But while you're just standing, you actually don't need to use those muscles as much. So while when you're standing in a minimal cushioning shoe, you will end up using your right kind of muscles to activate the foot better, and that will give you a better sense of support.
Paridhi, another thing that I've kind of personally felt is that when I wear some of these modern running shoes, especially the running shoes, right? They seem super inflexible. So it's like, one is standing on a cloud, so you're kind of a little unstable, and that's it. The shoe's like kind of a big cast around your feet, not letting your feet move. Is that a good thing, bad thing?
Consider this to be a decent running shoe. So while you put your foot in, it feels very nice, cushiony, bouncy. And it really feels like, okay, let me jump into it or let me just run. While you're doing that, it feels fine. But if you are doing that activity for a prolonged duration, the footwear has to be slightly flexible. So if I try to flex this, it's quite hard, right?
Yeah.
So I can't really get the natural gait mechanics, why I was explaining you from a heel strike to a midfoot to a front. So that is something which will be slightly difficult on this. And the load will come more on the ankle, and as a chain will go onto your knees, to your hip, to your back, right? And also, if we look at the front toe box, we see and say that, okay, it's a wider toe box. My Indian foot shape is also such that we need a front foot to be wider. Now, that's there. But if you look at the front portion, it's not just about the wide toe box here as a width, but also the front toe box that we say,
Yeah.
right? That also has to be wide enough, because after about an activity of 45 minutes, your foot starts to swell up. That's a very natural mechanics in our body. So with the physiological changes which will happen naturally, you will have a little bit of a swelling happening. Now that to accommodate in this kind of a shoe is very, very difficult, right? Feels quite flexible, easy, very light, rotational wise also very good, which is taking the load and allowing it to happen, right? Now what happens here, because you have a better toe box, your breathability of the toes is much better. So what we say is, when you're wearing any footwear, check for if you can wiggle your toes inside, right? So if you can wiggle the toes, that means there's an enough toe box. If you feel that yes, it's kind of snugged, most of the runners I see that will end up buying a half a size bigger for this reason only, that you will have to have a toe box which is better, right? Otherwise, you will have toenail issue, you will have a bite, shoe bite, or other things which happen in the foot. So those things end up happening. So that way, we need to have a better toe box, which will help our feet and the toes to wiggle better.
Interesting.
That's there. Also marking out that when the toe has a better space to breathe, your foot mechanics will be much better. You'll be able to load your entire body weight better on it, because how your toes, if they're very clogged up together in front, will actually start to hamper and have a condition also called as a Morton's neuroma.
Okay.
Which is basically because of the tightness, snugged toes, it actually hampers the nerves, because it's getting pressed upon, and that can actually inflame internally because of the pressure in that toe, right? So those things can also happen. With the better toe box, we'll not have those conditions, and we'll have a better stability, better balance, better proprioception, better way to control our feet and to propel our foot forward.
I've also read that, toe box, or the toes to have enough splay or movement, like you were saying, is super, super important, because that really determines how you're going to age. And apparently, and again, you need to tell me if I'm wrong or not, if your toes aren't strong enough, as you grow older, the possibility of falls actually go up.
Yeah.
And as we all kind of understand, if you fall when you're older, healing of bones takes longer, so on and so forth. So it's a super critical thing in my view. Is that true? Like, are the toes that important?
Yes. So there are researches done on it, wherein people who have even knee conditions like arthritis, if they walk barefoot and if they have a better toe mobility, what we say, that will actually be better, because what ends up happening when we trip or when there's a loss of balance, that is because the foot is not giving the right signal to the brain to control that action. So there will be a better control with the foot being more stronger. And also when we are doing things like, daily routine or walk or doing things, we need the receptors to give us a signal. And when those receptors are not giving the signal, there will be a loss of balance. So we need to make sure that we are strengthening the toes, and the toe mobility has to be there. There's a very interesting science also behind something called as the fascia chains.
Okay.
And which basically connects your big toe fascia to the entire body and going all through till your tongue, which is like a rubber band. It's an elastic, sort of a mesh in our body, which is controlling the entire movement, right? So when that is being controlled, the first thing it starts from is your toe. If you have a lesser toe mobility, it actually reduces your hip mobility. So it's coming from the big toe here, goes all across inner side of the fascia, comes across in the inner line, goes to the groin, into the center, and then comes across and comes to the tongue. So that's a fascia chain, what we say. And that toe mobility is important for that reason. So if we have a better toe mobility, we'll have a better hip mobility. Because of long sitting hours, because of the sedentary lifestyle, we actually end up having tighter, hips. And if you'll check your toe, that will also be tighter because it's interconnected.
Wow.
So as the movements become lesser as we age, we don't use our body as much and we're slower. So that's something which will help to let the body feel more balanced and more controlled.
Yeah. No, super interesting. Again, this is very anecdotal and observational, but when I see when you go to like a rural area where people are mostly wearing either very simple slippers or actually barefoot, at least I've noticed this more often now because I start looking at people's feet more often. You notice that the toe splay or the width of the foot from the front is much wider for
Correct.
folks like that versus some of us living in urban areas and wearing footwear that's probably constricting our toes, footwear like that.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So just to summarize, right? So what I understand is for a footwear to be good, it needs to have a wide toe box so that your toes play.
Correct.
It needs to be flexible so that your different parts of your foot can actually move and flex.
Correct.
There needs to be enough sensation going from your bottom of your foot so that you can react accordingly to stimuli. So there needs to be less cushioning per se. And I think the last point was the heel drop.
Yeah, correct.
It should be as natural as possible, which means flattish, right? With probably a little bit of support on the arch, but that's about it. That's probably the ideal footwear.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if that is the ideal footwear, and I'm sure for runners, and you train a number of them, having strong feet is the most important thing, probably, right? Why do they run in these shoes?
So, earlier what we were talking about, the book which I mentioned, that has a 4 weeks of a foot training program, right? And, how we train our other body parts, other muscles, we also need to address the foot and we need to train that. It is mostly neglected because the times have changed and they look at the technology changing, that okay, this is a shoe which is going to make me a faster runner. Or they feel that okay, this is a carbon plate shoe, so it's a light shoe and I'll run faster or do things. Barefoot running started much earlier and people did do that for a longer durations, and still we have people who are running barefoot. Complete barefoot, minimal footwear, or a barefoot shoe, all of these come into that one category where people are doing it. But because of the different brands talking about that, okay, this footwear is better than the other, and we are comparing and we are seeing that, okay, this one is 260 grams and this one's like 240 grams. So let me run in this, which is, reducing my weight of the entire body weight by 10 grams and I'm going to run faster. It's not the case like that. You need to train your foot really, really well so that you can actually run better. People are getting these shoes with the newer times, but I feel we still need to go back to the older campus shoes where we were wearing, the school shoes which we had. So those were better. And that's going to be long term for a longevity better for us, for our body health and having a better balance and control as compared to wearing these heavy cushion shoes. When we talk about, straight away from a very heavy cushion shoe to a barefoot shoe, you need to earn the shoe. So you cannot be like training all the time in barefoot and then straight away on race day wearing a heavy cushion shoe. If you have been a regular runner and you've been using a normal cushion shoe, which is a running shoe, to transition from there to a barefoot shoe will also take some time. So that training requires those 3 to 4 weeks of training to let your foot adapt to that new situation. How we say breaking into the new shoe of any activity, you need to break into the barefoot shoes also. So train your foot according to that. Yes, I am going from a heavy cushion to a minimal cushion to a barefoot shoe. The transition is needed.
Understood.
That's very important. So otherwise you'll end up getting injured. So you need to break in gradually, start using the barefoot shoes for your walks, do things in that, just general daily wear shoes, and then go on to the, heavy cushioned or transitioning to a heavy to a lighter one.
Makes a lot of sense. So Paridhi, I've also, given we've launched, this brand, and, we're kind of doing barefoot shoes, right? A number of folks or well-wishers would come to me and say, hey, but we've got these issues around bunions, or we're flat-footed. Do you think we can actually wear barefoot shoes, or, we should continue to kind of use some of these supports or orthotics, as they say technically, in our shoes that we're currently using? So I'd like to understand a little bit more around some of these common conditions that people have, and whether one should actually be using a lot of support and orthotics for them, or should otherwise be adopting more strengthening oriented exercises for the long run. And where do barefoot shoes actually fit into this entire spectrum?
So when we are talking about the foot conditions like bunion and a flat foot, so flat foot only happens when, like I was explaining, the arch that we have, right? That arch is maintained by a particular muscle, which is not letting it fall while we're standing and walking, right? So that muscle in particular needs to be trained entirely so that it holds it there, right? Now, when people say, I have a flat foot, should I be wearing a barefoot shoe or not? Or should I have a particular kind of an insole?
Yeah.
The standardized, customized insoles that are available in market, or are saying that, okay, it helps in flat foot conditions, the foot mechanics, which has taken the load and is now looking like a flat foot, it cannot be changed. Right? So even if you're putting that orthotics or an insole, it is only going to support it. It's not going to change it. So we're not changing the condition, we're just supporting it, right? With that classical insole put into any footwear, you cannot do activities like running for sure, because it is going to actually stop you from having that proper foot mechanics, right? Like the foot has to free flow. It should not be constricted, right? So the flat foot people have to actually train that particular muscle, which is called as the tibialis posterior. So the tibialis posterior is a deep muscle in our around like the backside of the shin bone, which is basically controlling right from here behind and then going up, right? So that muscle needs to be trained so that the arch can be maintained better. If you strengthen that particular muscle, it will help your flat foot also. And there is no strict rule like you can't wear a barefoot. You can wear a barefoot, right? You train that muscle and you can wear it. People with bunions must wear a wider toe box footwear.
So they should definitely wear a barefoot.
Yes, because bunion has happened because of the wrong footwear that they've been wearing, and the close, tight toe box that's there, right? So because of that load, the entire, like the first great toe that we say, the first toe, which has kind of gone inwards and has taken that shape of the footwear, as compared to having, open toe box wherein you can actually move your toes freely. So it has kind of like, I see some people who almost have overlapped their big toe over the other. It starts as a very basic, small niggle that you start to feel a little niggle and pain around the big toe. But it happens because of uric acid. It happens because of footwear. It happens because of multiple reasons. But when it ends up becoming a permanent issue, no amount of surgeries, no orthotics, none of these actually work. So the best thing to do is to take care of the foot health. If you can get something like a toe spacer, that would really help. Like we teach exercises particularly for bunions so that you can reverse that and make sure that you can actually prevent it. I can't really reverse it completely, but prevent it from further damage, which will be better as compared to, wearing those particular orthotics and, things to just make sure that, okay, it's kind of being there for like 10 hours in a day. And then the remaining hours you're, standing and you're again loading it. Most of the people I see wear these, kind of sleeves for the toe, or are working on their toe at night.
Yeah.
But while they are, addressing, and while they are actually on their feet, they don't train it. So they need to be training while they are on their feet. So there are toe spacers which are available, which while you're working out, while you're standing, while you're doing things, you can wear those, and that will help better.
Interesting. Sounds like people should be buying these foot fix kits
Yeah.
that have some of these things, and can help your feet get healthier and better. Uh, I want to jump into something that from at least the conversation we're having sounds very obvious to do. Is what should we do with our kids? So is letting them be without shoes the best option? And if that is not an option in some scenarios where the ground is not very conducive, what is the next best option? And currently, are we really ruining their feet?
So, like I said initially, that, they should be kept barefoot as much as possible. And if they are going out and there'll be a chance of probably falling or having a wrong terrain where they're going to walk, so then you can wear a footwear. But otherwise, throughout the day, they should be barefoot to get that better control and arch. Because only when we are forcing them to wear so much of footwear, which there are many now in the market, where you see that, okay, they're just sliding their feet into it, and they will only keep wearing those in a incorrect manner. You will see so many kids just sliding their feet and not walking properly in that. It's better to walk barefoot, so that they train their foot according to that, how it should be for a long term mechanics, as compared to just, temporarily doing it for the sake of doing it, because they outgrow their shoes
Yeah.
very quickly. So it's better that, as much as possible, minimal hours they are wearing the footwear, and otherwise they are barefoot. That's much better.
Very interesting. And we decided not to name brands, but I'll still take the liberty of going with this. Crocs. My kids wear Crocs, and I know a lot of other friends of theirs who also wear Crocs, probably all day. Is that okay for them?
So Crocs, I would say, is quite a bad footwear for kids, especially because when you slide into it, you'll see like it's a very round, oval, dome-shaped sort of a cup made there with small, protrusions which you see, like very small, tiny ones which you see. So that's giving like an sort of a signal to the foot underneath that there's something there, but it's not actually going to train the foot, because when you put it in, half of the kids I see wearing Crocs are wearing it incorrectly, because there's a back strap which is there, which is always in front, right? And their heel is always out of that border. So they're actually ruining it more than actually helping it. So, like, not recommended for kids.
Understood.
If they have to wear something, it's better to wear a close footwear.
Understood. So, Paridhi, Crocs, I get it. Probably I'm going to go back home and change the footwear for my kids to start with, and then we'll probably spread the word around as well. The other footwear that is very common amongst adults is, Birkenstock. While before you even say anything, I admit that they look really good. But what do they do to our feet and our overall health?
Birkenstock has a feel of the natural foot that they are showing. That there's a cork sheet, there's a rubber layer, on top of that there's a cork sheet, and that cork sheet has an imprint of the front toe being placed, and the heel has a cup. Now, while you're wearing that, when you put your feet in, it feels very nice because it's giving you a very comfortable feel. But when you start walking in it, it's actually quite hard, because when you propel, like I'm again and again going back to the same thing of going from a heel strike to a midfoot to a front foot, that's how we naturally walk. Now, while if I'm standing and walking in a barefoot, I'm going to have that full phase to transition from one step to the other. But in a footwear like Birkenstock, what happens, because of the straps in front, it actually limits the ankle and the foot movement, because it is going to be a stiff belt here, right? And you put your foot into it, you will not be able to get that on the toe. As compared to a natural foot, you can be on your toes like this, right? But while when you wear a harder footwear, you cannot be on the toe. And like I mentioned, the toe mobility is very, very crucial. In the initial times, it'll feel very nice and you might feel comfortable for a couple of months also. But eventually, over a due course of time, it will actually reduce your mobility of your toes, your foot, your ankle. And that's when the problems start. So people end up getting knee pains and back pains because of the kind of footwear that they're wearing. Earlier, it used to happen that I used to tell people whenever patients were coming to me, and I used to say that, okay, no, you can put your footwear outside so that it's clean. And now it's so important for me to know what footwear they're wearing, because that could be one of the reasons that's causing their injury. And I see a person in a very static state that, okay, I have a knee pain. Now, what has caused that knee pain? I need to identify that root cause. So, in order to identify the root cause, it's so important to know the entire mechanics, their lifestyle, their other things around that. And footwear plays a major role. And it's not just one brand as a Birkenstock having a harder footwear. General sneakers or even formal shoes that, usually men are wearing for their work, that's also quite hard.
Yeah.
And we've not been able to crack any footwear wherein it's quite comfortable, has a decent sort of a, arch support, or also look decent, because then they can't be wearing sports shoes to the work. So we're still kind of, finding out that, okay, what could actually help them better.
Interesting. So basically, what you're saying is your knee pain or your back pain might just be the result of the kind of shoes you're wearing.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Again, I have these insoles with me, and essentially these are different insoles from different shoes. One is a barefoot shoe, the other two are essentially standard sneakers. I'd like you to compare these for me from the perspective of what we've been talking about around a white toe box, earlier.
Yeah. So, first, when I look at the barefoot shoe, what I can see is that it's quite a straight forward, as a wider, gap in terms of, like, you have a wider toe box, and you can see that there's a wide way towards the front end also. Whereas when I put this footwear over the same size of an insole, which is of the other shoe, now if you are able to see a neon shade,
Yeah.
so that means the amount of wideness that we really need. So whenever you are checking that how my toe box is, it's not just looking at the width of that toe box from the outside of the shoe, but take the insole out, put your foot over it, right? So when you're able to place that foot and you stand, so if you see that the toes are coming out of that, that means that that shoe is not right for you. You'll not have enough toe swaying or the toe to have a wiggling, right? If you're standing on this and you feel that, yes, now my toe is completely covered inside, that means that, yes, it's a right footwear, right? So that's one. And another one, if we look at this, we see it's slightly better than the first one, but we still see that there's a little narrowness in the front, right? So that's where these conditions like bunions happen, because we don't have enough space for the first toe to breathe. So it goes inwards, and that is what is actually going to lead up to those conditions of the foot, right? Because there'll be a rubbing effect on the front side and as well as on the inner side. So that can actually cause those injuries. So we need to have something wherein we say that, okay, there's a wider toe box which can help for the toes to breathe better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And given we've been making some of these barefoot shoes, right? It's very hard to actually change this toe box that you're talking about. Just tomorrow, if I want to go to go to the factory that's making my shoes and say, hey, can you make a wider toe box? It's hard to do because I need to then change the entire structure of the shoe. So hence, I think some of these companies probably want to change it, but because they're already set in stone with regards to
Yeah.
their caste, etc., it's super hard to kind of do.
Sure, can be. Yeah.
So, Paridhi, we've spoken a lot about, and different points we've probably touched upon these as well. But can you kind of summarize the common foot conditions that people come to you with, and which probably are a result of the kind of footwear they've been wearing?
Yes. So, multiple footwears, multiple problems. Now, the most common one is a bunion, hammer toe, plantar fasciitis, because there's a new footwear and you'll put your foot in that kind of causes plantar fasciitis sometimes. Conditions like Morton's neuroma, which is basically a nerve getting inflamed in between the toes, and that causes an irritation around that area. There's a condition also called as metatarsalgia, which is also in the front area of the forefoot, wherein there's a numbness sensation or a burning sensation that people feel. That's that. Also considering not just the inner, like the undersole conditions, but also conditions like ankle mobility problems of having a calf issue, or even shin splints, knee pains, hip pains. Ankle twists also happen quite frequently in the wrong footwear, because it does not get the right kind of a connection that you can get for the muscle to kind of balance out. So ankle twists are very common. We also see conditions like the toenail issues, which comes under a podiatrist's expertise and they deal with it. But it is quite common beyond, for runners especially, because beyond a certain distance that they are running, the foot is swelling up and that's causing an irritation around the toenail. It could also be because of an ingrown nail, or it could be because of a taller nail which has not been cut on. So yeah.
And all of these are largely oriented towards the footwear we're wearing.
Yes.
So, what should people wear?
So, as much as possible at home, stay barefoot so that your feet do get the breathability. And if possible, try to wear open footwear. And you have to wear a closed footwear, then something as close to a barefoot shoe, which will help to train the muscles better so that your foot does not get these injuries and conditions. And if whenever you're wearing a formal shoe or doing things wherein you can't help it, then try to just take off the footwear whenever possible. So just take it off, move your feet around, just do some toe mobility. Tell this to a lot of my office goers also, that just take your feet out, roll the socks down, and just hold your toes with all your fingers and just roll that. Like that will give you so much more relief than as compared to doing, those hot water dips and the cold water dips that people end up doing for a foot pain. So that mobility really helps. And that's a quick thing to do. So which is doable. Do that and try to release out the under portion of the feet with either a ball or have a small roller. Use those things to kind of ease that out. Really focus on staying grounded. So sit in a squat position wherein your ankle, your body weight is going to be under a lot of load, and your entire ankle will be flexed a certain way while you're sitting in deep squat position, because there are rarest of the times in during the day now that we would sit in a deep squat, right? Earlier times were much different, and we would sit down multiple times in the day on the ground to eat food, to do things multiple times. But now we don't have that. So try to do a deep squat position. That will really help with your foot conditions as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you make that point. In fact, it sounds a lot like give your feet some pain so that they kind of get stronger. It's like going to a gym and trying to do some weights where you probably feel the pain, but your muscles are developing and getting stronger, right?
So during the day, like what I tell them is, how you take like snack break. It's like those exercise breaks that you can take, which could be just movement breaks.
Interesting.
Which could be just for your overall body, not just focusing on foot, but even neck problems, because people are sitting and glued onto the computer, which kind of causes their neck and back issues. So just take some exercise breaks in between, which will be better for a longevity as compared to just looking at that, okay, when I have a condition and I'll go to a doctor and I'll fix it.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Brings me to another point, again, keeps coming up in the passing. shoe rotation. Uh, what does it mean? And I have a certain kind of meaning in my head, but it'll be great if you can really tell us what it means. Should we be doing it? If yes, why?
So, shoe rotation basically means that how we sleep every night to recover from the entire load that we've done through the day. The spinal health kind of gets better with our sleep cycle. The body is recovered and rested so that you can take on the next day. The shoe also needs the recovery time. The shoe is majorly, when we talk about the shoes, it has a foam. It could be in the insole, it could be in the cushioning, it could be the gel, it could be any type of footwear, but it requires a kind of a recovery time, right? So if you keep wearing the same shoe each day and you're standing and walking and weight bearing on it, it can actually cause the footwear to give you problems than to help you, because that is not going to be efficiently working for you, right? So you need to do a shoe rotation so that the shoe is doing the actual efficiency of that work which it can help you with. So do a rotation so that the foam is kind of recovering from the kind of, when you're training, when you're standing, when you're doing other activities, it should be as a rotation to be used. So every time that you're wearing a, like an office shoe, or you're having a running shoe, change that. So don't use the same footwear for all the days of your, running, or the same footwear for all your, office days. So
Understood.
do a shoe rotation, and that would help for the ground reaction force for the body to actually recover better.
Interesting. So essentially, different use cases probably need different kinds of shoes
Yes, correct.
in it. Okay. Great. So I would like to kind of ask you this question. We met about a month ago, right? Probably a little bit more than a month, I guess. And at that point in time, I gave you 3 pairs of the Rara Barefoot shoes, and would of course you've given me feedback off and on, but I want to get some live feedback from you on this podcast. Uh, on the 3 shoes that I gave you, and what you think about them. What can we do better? What do you love? What have we hit out of the park, and where do we kind of lack?
So the first one which I really loved using was the Uruk, which I'm wearing right now. And I have a shoe to show you what actually kind of helped. One is that it's quite light and very flexible. So it allows me to move around very freely. And I do not have to keep my shoelaces off always, because usually while I'm standing, it's a long standing work which I have. So I end up keeping my shoelaces really loose so I can just pull it out. So with this, I have not felt the need of doing that. So it's kept very light and easy. And with the wider toe box, it has helped the foot to not swell up. So because I, in the end of the day, have a little swelling here because of a little water retention, and as well as the toe feels quite tight by the end of the day. So this has helped me with that as well. So that's a good thing which I really liked about Uruk. Yeah. So the third one being the Zanzibar, which is a very light, comfy shoe as a casual wear. I've not worn it for very long durations at work somehow, and but it's a very light shoe which is giving me a very good feel.
Yeah.
So as a shoe rotation, I've really liked using all 3 of them.
It also looks
So-
very cool.
Yes, yeah. And one thing which I'm actually, curious about, that how did you come up with this name?
Yeah, so, before we launched the brand, Manas and I basically, went through a number of ideas. Barefoot shoes or barefoot sneakers is something that came to us because of a book that we'd read about a decade back, right? Very famous book, very cool book. It's called Born to Run. I think it's there as well. This book is essentially about a tribe in Mexico that runs hundreds of kilometers barefoot, right? Either barefoot or in barefoot sandals. And these guys essentially end up running these ultra marathons, and they win them versus folks who are wearing these carbon plated performance boosting shoes, right? The name of the tribe is Raramuri.
Okay.
And that's what essentially got us to, keep the name Rara.
Nice. It's quite interesting. I have also recommended the shoes to few friends and family, and they have also like loved it because it's such a light, good feel of it. So that's also been a very good, feedback that I've gotten from my friends and family as well.
So glad to hear. So glad to
Thank
hear.
you.
So Paridhi, can you tell me a little bit about people transitioning into barefoot shoes? How painful would it be, and how difficult is it?
If they have tried it earlier or not, and how much time they spend on a very heavy cushion shoe or a formal footwear or bellies or heels. So it depends on if they have had an experience of walking barefoot or in a minimal cushion shoes, then it's easier as compared to somebody who's always been on a very heavy cushion shoe and straight away going into this, because you'll actually feel the pain and the soreness in your feet. Initially, like I mentioned, that there has to be a breaking into the shoe, so you need to strengthen some muscles of your small toes and let the muscles adapt to that. So it takes about a week to 10 days to feel naturally that, okay, yes, there's a little bit of a niggle which I'm feeling, that there's a little nagging sort of a soreness pain, a sweet pain. But that's something where you're just transitioning to the barefoot and it'll be smooth within about 10 to 15 days. You can start using the barefoot shoes only for your 10 to 15 minutes of a walk, gradually progressing it to walking it for a couple of hours and then progressing to using it in activities. So it's a transition from a light activity to a serious activity of having a longer duration of wearing it. So yeah, while you're transitioning and you feel that little niggle, it's actually a good feedback that you're getting, that your feet are getting adapted towards the new situation. So that's absolutely fine to feel that initially for 10 to 15 days. If that nagging thing lasts longer and you feel that no, it's kind of still bothering me, then you need to address it, probably show it to an expert, check through, and then wear that.
Fair. And would it be then kind of right to say that it's the good idea is to actually start doing everyday normal activities in a barefoot footwear versus actually starting to wear it for high intensity workouts or running, etc., to start with?
Yeah, so like there are three kinds of shoes. I would say start off with just wearing the casual shoes initially. And when you feel confident that, yes, my foot has adapted well to it, then you transition towards in the high intensity training and lifting and doing things in that. So transition gradually, don't go overboard because you'll end up getting injuries. So go very, very gradually with that.
Makes sense. Would you want to talk about some myths about barefoot shoes? I mean, look, I think the first barefoot shoe that came out were those five-finger Vibrams, right? And they still exist and
Yeah.
they do really well.
Yeah.
But again, that's a different ball game, probably meant for like athletes who are very used to training in such kind of footwear. What are some of the common myths about barefoot shoes that should be kind of dispelled?
One is that people think that because it's a barefoot shoe, um, I should only be wearing for a certain time duration and I can't train in them. Right. So if you transition well and you have earned that shoe well, you can actually train also. One is that. Another thing I feel is more to do with that how is it different than what I'm wearing. So people always compare cushion wala shoe acha to lag raha hai, so why should I transition to a barefoot shoe. uh, I would say for a better foot health, they have to really take care of that. So for a better toe wiggling and the toe splay, that a barefoot shoe is much better than a general footwear that we wear. Another thing I feel the most common thing about is that I might lose my balance, because it actually initially when you wear it, it feels like, oh, like I'm from a foam based shoe straight away transitioning to this, and feels very wobbly and unbalanced. But for a long term, for especially people aging, it's better to wear the barefoot shoes, which will help them to have a better sensory input. So that's another thing. It's not always about defining that this age group should wear this barefoot shoe, or if I'm not into an activity I should not wear that shoe. You can wear the barefoot shoes at any age and any type of a footwear, or whatever you have are coming from, you can shift from that to this, transitioning basically. Another thing I felt, because I've been wearing so regularly now, this is my own personal experience also into it. 2 to 3 days, I was out for a workshop, and there I was supposed to run and do long-term things, and I had worn the heavy cushion shoes. After about a couple of hours, I felt I want to remove this and I want to come back to the shoe. So this was actually a big thing, which I personally also felt that I want this shoe back. Like, I cannot be wearing this all the time now. So yeah.
Very good to hear. And I'll just add one more point to that. I think one common perception is that barefoot shoes look ugly. And yes, I agree. Some of them do look ugly,
Yes.
but I think they can look beautiful as well. And, that's one of the endeavors that we have to make barefoot footwear that looks great.
That looks
So,
great.
yeah.
Yes. No, Rara's done a good job in doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very blanket kind of question. Are barefoot shoes for everyone?
Yes, I would say they are for everyone, but you need to transition. Like, I'm coming again and again to the same point of that, how it would help, not just for your better balance, posture, standing, but also for your, getting the right kind of like a mental health, and having a better hormonal health as well, because how the chain is working in your entire foot to your system, it actually changes a lot of things internally as well. Like I mentioned, that there was the entire fascia which runs from your toe, and that's connected to your hip health, and that's connected to your tongue. So it's all interconnected. The body is a full mesh. So with that mesh that we have, we are actually changing a lot of physiological things also in our body, which happen on a everyday basis. So yes, the barefoot can actually change all of those things overall as well.
What are the signs basically that would tell an individual that probably their footwear is not working for them?
So initially, when you're breaking into a new shoe and you start wearing a new shoe, it might feel like it's a different feel of it, which is absolutely fine. For about a week, 10 days, you break in and you see that, okay, is every day becoming better and better? If not, then one is that if you have been wearing a particular footwear for a very long duration, for training purposes or for general footwear also, I say that everyone should change after about 6 to 8 months if they have been wearing it on a regular basis, regular being 2 to 3 times a week, right? If you have been wearing more than that, then it could be sooner also. It also depends on how much is the usability of that footwear.
Yeah.
Another thing is when you see that the foam is kind of losing its shape and it is giving you an everyday nagging pain. One niggle is a different thing and it just settles down after 2-3 days of rest and it's fine. But if it's a nagging pain which is lasting for more than that, and has lasted more than 2 to 3 weeks, that means the footwear is not helping. Another thing to notice is to check that if the sole is not flattening, because you've been using it for a longer duration, the sole might flatten. So the grip of the shoe might be lost.
Okay.
So you need to check that also. And if, with the weather changes also, the rubber changes its elasticity, so that if you have not used it for a long duration and you're suddenly using it, it might actually lose its elasticity, and that can also lead up to an injury. So you need to change in all of those cases.
So Dr. Paridhi, what are the core advantages of barefoot footwear?
So to keep it short, like will be just the foot strength, having a better sensory input, having a better balance and control, and also looking upon that how that fascia is linked. It is going to help in a better overall physiological change and getting the better posture control, getting your better hormonal health, your physical health, and also the sense of support that you tend to get. So that'll help with that.
Understood. Paridhi, I'm going to take you through, a set of questions. Let's not call it a rapid fire, but ideally I'd shoot and, would hope that you give me quick and crisp answers. It's cool? Okay. So I'm going to read from my phone.
Yeah.
Barefoot shoes are only for athletes.
Not really. It's for everyone.
Okay. You need thick cushioning to protect your joints.
No, so you need the foot strength to protect your joints, as compared to just a foot cushion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Barefoot shoes cause injuries.
You have to transition into it. So if you don't transition well, yes, it can cause injuries. But if you transition well, it will not cause injuries. It will rather help you better.
Understood. People with flat feet can't wear minimal barefoot footwear.
It's not really the right thing, because if the barefoot or a minimal footwear has a right kind of a inner arch, it's okay. And the other thing is that to actually train your muscle, which is the tibialis posterior muscle, that will help for your foot to become or prepare better for the transition that you're.
Understood. You must control pronation with supportive shoes.
No, you must control the pronation through strengthening that muscle better.
Okay. Barefoot shoes are bad for long walks or general daily use.
No, so if you have transitioned well and started with wearing it for 15 minutes to 30 minutes to an hour and a couple of hours, it's okay to wear it throughout the day as well. If you're initially just wearing it for the first time, start with wearing it for a shorter duration and then transition to for longer durations.
So it's all basically about transition.
Yes.
You'll damage your arches without ample orthotic support.
We have already formed our arches through over the years with walking, barefoot at home. So you're not going to damage it further. You are just preparing your foot muscles to be able to last that long. So if you have something like a barefoot, which is actually going to mimic the right kind of muscle stability, is actually going to help better.
Okay. Kids need supportive shoes to develop properly.
So kids, as much as possible, should remain barefoot. That will help them for better foot development as compared to wearing the kind of a closed shoes too much. That's going to damage it more.
Makes sense. Barefoot shoes are just a trend.
No, it's not a trend. It's the right kind of footwear which will help with your foot health and a better longevity of your overall health as well, and not just about the foot health.
Okay. You can't switch to barefoot shoes instantly.
Yes, correct. You can't. You need to transition it slowly and very, very gradually. It might take a couple of weeks or even a month or so on for some people, which is absolutely fine.
Perfect. So, Paridhi, we buy shoes very often these days, right? Different use cases, shoes wear out, and sometimes we just want new shoes, right? So, what are some of the key things that, one should kind of look at before buying new shoes?
So one is that you've already had an experience with a brand already and you want to buy the same brand. If you're looking at the new shoe, then what you can try to look for is something like, I hold this shoe. So one is that there's a minimal heel drop. There's not too much cushioning. It'll help with my foot strength. So the other thing is to look for that if it's flexible enough or not. So it has to be really nice and flexible, just not here as a foot, but also the side to side rotation, because we are walking in different terrains and sometimes it happens that we are jumping and running and hopping. So it should be flexible enough to move side to side as well. And when you place your foot in, instead what you can do is to roll out the insole, out of the footwear and check for that if that you put your feet on it, is your toe coming out of it or not? If it's coming well within, that means that that is a right size and a right shape for you, because it is going to not snug or tighten up your foot while you're wearing that. Another thing to check is the front side. While when you put the foot in, you can check for enough space, at least about 1 finger distance, and not just seeing that, okay, I will move it and see and press that, okay, I have some space. So just place your finger here and see if that much distance is there or not. That'll be better. Walk around, move around. Most of the stores allow you. Some of the sports stores also have a treadmill to walk on or mimic the running pattern. So just see through how that feels and then buy a footwear. Don't just look at the color. Don't just look at the usability of it's a speed shoe, I should get this. Don't think about that, but use the features of the footwear first. And is your foot ready enough to take that or not? Do that.
Understood.
That will help better.
Yeah, makes sense. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I know this is, you were just mentioning that you had a session in the morning as well, and then now you're here talking to us. Really appreciate and very grateful that you came all the way, spent time, gave us all of this information, this knowledge about feet health, about the science behind it, barefoot shoes versus cushion shoes, what one should do, not do, etc., etc. Thank you again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Varun. And I really hope that with this, if people are hearing it, the right kind of awareness is put out so that they know that, yes, it's okay to use this kind of a shoe and how can they prepare better. as compared to just looking at a fancy ad and then realizing that, oh, this looks fine, so I can buy it, or this looks ugly, so I should not buy it. It's better to have a knowledge about it and know that, yes, this is something which I would actually benefit for long term. It's a thing which not many people talk about, because in India we don't have many podiatrists, and that's something which is lacking a lot. So putting it out for a common people to understand, it's a great initiative that you've taken, and to put it all together. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
a
you
lot.
for inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. Paridhi.